Welcome to Sacredish,
Welcome.
my friend.
Very exciting.
This is our first official episode, and I'm excited about it because it's the original topic that you had in mind when we started talking about it, which is meaning in life and having more meaning in life these days. So I was thinking maybe we can start with you just sharing why that was important to you and why it's our inaugural episode.
I just think there are so many barriers to meaning in our world today, right? And there's a vacuum in terms of people who identify as spiritual but not religious, or not as tied to community, and feel overloaded and not fed in this way. And so to me, it's such an important topic to talk about, because I think many of us have, if we don't live there, we visit it, right? Sometimes when we get there and we're like, I don't like this place. But, and there's so many obstructions, like I mentioned, the technology, the world we live in is very dopamine, short-term fueled. Meaning is a long-term endeavor. So all the good stuff takes a little bit of work.
Why does it have to be that way? Why can't we have fast food, divinity, fast food meaning? Well, mostly what I'm excited about is you have promised me by the end of this session that you will tell me the meaning of life. And,
it's 42, right, Susan? Like Come on. We already know this.
All right. We'll let it be. But I think you hit on it, which is life is really hard. Life is hard in general, and it's hard at times. It's harder at times. But there's a crisis of meaning in America today. Just doing some research and some homework, psychologists are calling that out as just an absence of meaning is part of, certainly not all of, but part of what's fueling collective anxiety, increased depression, and a lot of things out there. Our culture is just sort of kind of scary right now and spinning out of control, and meaning gives people an anchor. And if you're not consciously thinking about what's meaningful to me and filtering, like discernment and filtering, like I'm not going to worry about that because that's not meaningful to me or important in my life. It can really.
Yeah, it can. And I think information overload is definitely a piece of that. And, the being paralyzed by choice is another. So this is a very weird example, but I was in the grocery store a couple of days ago, and I was like, I need to get some protein powder. I'm just going to start throwing, because, the interwebs tell me that I'm not eating enough protein. Oh my gosh, we need more protein, clearly. And so I am standing in this aisle and I'm looking at all of these, an insane number of options. And I think, man, which one of these has the least toxins in it, has the best ingredients, all of these things, right? And I just stood there and was like, not today. I'm just not getting this today. And I think that, the fact that we do have so many options and we are so overwhelmed with information, and we're so, I don't know, it feeds like a level of skepticism or, a desire to just shut down in a way. And so, it can be very intimidating to dig in and focus on something that will give you meaning, right? Like, what is my meaning feels like a lofty path to go down. And in reality, it can be really simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any inspiration?
I don't know. Lately, for me, meaning is really in the mundane. I think that the world is so out of control, and we've talked a little bit about this, just personally, that the world is so out of control. It's allowed me to release my idea of control much more than I've ever been able to. And so cooking a meal has become a meaningful endeavor for me. Sipping a favorite beverage and reading a book has become meaningful. Like spending time with people I enjoy, that sense of community, very mundane, highly meaningful. So those are the things, but I feel like I should be doing more. I'm like, I'm like, there should be a grander meaning. There should be a bigger calling, right? I think the achievement side is always there.
Yeah, and that is quite a trap, isn't it? Because who defines? Who defines what a big meaning is and what a small meaning is? And yeah, we had a great conversation the other day about control. And I think I always joke I'm recovering type A. But part of that is I am control sober, and I've been control sober for probably about 8 years. And I gotta tell you, like, it's glorious. It's absolutely glorious to say, I'm just gonna do my part, and what'll be will be. I'm gonna own my dharma. I'm gonna own my responsibility. I'm not gonna abdicate any of that. But then the rest will probably work out better than if I tried to mastermind it. You know,
I love that
um,
idea of control
and
sober. I think the hashtag right there, putting that out there. That's amazing.
I'm
Yeah,
control
but
sober.
I agree with
Um,
you that, um, you know, there is such a release of responsibility that weighs you down and that you don't realize until you start to let go of it, right? Till you start to just pry your grip open just a little bit and let go just a teeny bit. Um, and I think that's why a lot of people, I mean, I know this was certainly true for me because I no longer drink, but like alcohol was that for me. It was a way for me to, um, like find a shortcut to that feeling, right? You were talking about fast food. It's like the fast food solution, right? And so a lot of people rely on things like
yeah.
that.
And it's so hollow and so fleeting. And I have all the same, there's so many little crutches. And I think for me, and maybe it is even more simple than you were talking about, sort of the mundane meaning of life. But letting go of control and realizing, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
what's left, right? Like, what am I here for? And I think, you know me well, so Joseph Campbell is the love of my life. I
He's
have
only
no
my
shame
boyfriend,
in
but he's
saying that.
definitely the love of your life. Yes.
He's the love of my life. And I've kind of been going through a
I
Joseph
love him.
Campbell revival. He was my high school, college, just like, oh my God, I think he's just such a tremendous thinker, so far ahead of his time. And I think I stole this from him, and I didn't realize I stole this from him until I came back and read it. But for me, it's like, just to be alive is the meaning of life. I heard somebody say, we're not humans striving for a spiritual experience, we're spirits having a human experience. And I think I only heard that like 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe years ago. And I was like, what? I was like, it was such a reframe for me as somebody who was a seeker and always looking for meaning and just studying religions. And I was like, it just reframed everything. And just in such a beautiful way. And for me, having gone through a lot of hardship, as everybody does, but really intense hardship over the last several years, meaning just became
Mm-hmm.
appreciating being alive. Like, go outside, and like I drag my kids out and they're like, oh mom, like, oh my God, our mom's crazy. I'm like, you can see the clouds, you can feel the sun, you can feel the breeze, like look at the colors in the grass. And like, it for me, it's just very much become just the meaning of life is to know that you're alive, to abide in the joy of that, and to show your gratitude through love. Like, that's what it is for me. And that is just, I'm sure some people will be like, oh my God, hippy dippy. But I'm like, well, what else is there? The rest of it is man
Mm-hmm.
made crap, right? Artificial meaning. I'm not, my life doesn't have any more or less meaning if I have a BMW or a lake house, or do you know what I'm saying? Like, we just create all of this artificial meaning because I think too many of us are empty on the inside, and we don't know how to fill it, and we don't have the
Yes.
patience to fill it, right, in a way that is, I'll use the word everlasting, but maybe transcendent's a better
Yeah, I was
word,
looking
right?
through some of the info that, some of your prep info for this, and I think you had mentioned, it's a very American way to think about meaning in terms of like self achievement and materialism. And I think we are seeing that play out, right? that it's not satisfying for people, but it's what they've been told will solve all their problems. If you just make enough money, if you just have, the right car, or, the right house, or go to the right schools, or, like whatever, that money is a goal. The accumulation of money is a goal instead of a tool. And, we've been sold that for a long time. And people get there, they achieve whatever goal they had set financially, and then they find that, you know, there's no true satisfaction in it. I mean, it's a great tool. Don't get me
There's no
wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not opposed to it. I,
So if I win the
Yeah,
lotto,
yeah.
you want
No,
me to
I used
share,
to know
but
a minister. I had a friend who was a minister, and she, we would talk about, I don't know, running retreats or whatever, and she never wanted to charge anything. And I was like, money is a tool. It's not, you don't have to be afraid of it. It's not a horrible thing. But it's not the
yeah.
destination for sure, you know.
Yeah, 100%. In fact, it was probably Joseph Campbell, because all my good stuff is Joseph Campbell. He was talking about, you can see how meaning has evolved over time if you look at how communities are built. It used to be the church was the center structure, the center architecture, and it was also the tallest, biggest building, right? So you're looking up at the steeples and the whatnot. You think of Notre Dame, you think of, so many different beautiful cathedrals. And now what are the biggest buildings in any metropolitan city? The business buildings, the skyscrapers, right? So this capitalistic creep that has sort of reframed, what we value and what we look at. And it's almost an act of rebellion, to pull yourself out of that system and to think, wait a minute, I'm not going to subscribe to that. I'm not going to fall into that trap. But it's also incredibly difficult because you are judged all day
Hmm.
long. Think about when you meet somebody. Oh, what do you do? What's your title? Where do you work? Where do you live? Right. And if you're like, oh, I sell seashells down by the seashore, people look at you like, well, it was
They're like,
nice
I have
seeing you.
nothing in common with you. Yes.
Like, I mean, and I can't be seen with you because, like, you don't fit do you know,
Yeah, you
like,
don't fit my
um,
idea of
so it's,
who I want to associate with. I'm on a path, that you're not on. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So it is, it is revolutionary. It's like, I'm also a huge, Thoreau fan, and yes, his little cabin on the lake was a mile down the road from Emerson. He was not exactly in any danger, but that idea of living purposefully, I'm dubious on that word, but living with intention and living in the now, being present in the now. It's such an Eastern idea, and it's still shocking to the Western ear even after all this time. It's still
Well, we're
shocking,
further from
so
nature and the world we actually inhabit than we've ever been in many ways. If you live in a city, you're very divorced from it. But even if you live in a place where it's right outside your door, there's the tendency to be sucked into a screen. I have a whole series of pictures of my son through over a course of years in beautiful places staring at his phone. Like everywhere we would go, I would take a picture of him in natural beauty staring at his phone. You know, yeah,
oh, I
because
love
it's,
that. That's
it's
amazing.
easy to do. I would say one of my most spiritually centered periods was I took a sabbatical from work. And during that time, it was spring. And every day I would make myself lunch. And then I would go out and lay down under the tree in my backyard in the grass. And my dog would usually come snuggle up next to me, even better, even better. And we would let the sun warm us, and I would pet the dog, and it was like 20 minutes under the tree every day. It was amazing, amazing. But when was the last time I went down and laid under a tree? Years. It had been years. So, it
Yeah,
just doesn't even
yeah.
occur to me. So, it's almost like you have to be very intentional about seeking out those experiences now that used to be very commonplace.
I think that's so insightful, and I'm so glad you mentioned it. It's like, I think it was the Dalai Lama who joked about, I think it was our religion, whatever, man against man against God, nature against man. What a funny religion, but we really have sort of pulled ourselves out of nature. And I think you're so spot on with that. We've kind of pulled ourselves out of the rhythm, the
Yeah.
harmony.
I'm sure there are a lot of academic
Yeah.
papers that have been written on, this also the American mentality of conquering the wilderness and how ingrained that is in our culture and our literature and all those things. And, at this
Yeah.
point, in many ways, we have clearly not completely because we have wildfires and floods. Nature is reminding us that it is not conquered for sure. But we have much
Mhm.
more predictability related to nature than we've probably ever had in many ways. We have early warning systems, we have technology to help us monitor things. We live in sturdy buildings that have climate control and all these things, right? So, in many ways we have conquered nature, but, I think that is a piece of the puzzle. I'm going to free associate for a second. Are you familiar with North Sentinel Island? It's in the Bay of Bengal. Or okay, it's near India.
No,
I
tell me.
totally see that the internet is fabulous for some things, and you can just find these little pearls all day long. But there, there's an island near India that has basically had no contact with the outside world. And there's a tribe that lives on that island,
Mm,
and it's actually protected by the Indian government. You're not supposed to go there. And American tourists went there, I don't know, sometime in the last few years and was killed. They did. They said, "You're not welcome." And then they buried him on the beach. But they live like, it's basically a Stone Age civilization that still exists in this world today. Isn't that unreal?
wow. Wow. That is, yeah, I wasn't aware, right? Like I'm familiar with the Yanomamo and the South American tribes, like from college when we studied them.
Right,
They are
exactly.
now
Most of them
contaminated,
have been.
right? I didn't realize like what an amazing, yeah. When I think about kind of those transcendent experiences, that the moments when I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I can touch the
Mm-hmm.
sacred. It always is in nature. I was lucky enough. I had a horse growing up, and like when I get really overwhelmed and I don't know what to do, I long to go horseback riding. Just me, my horse, alone on acres and acres and acres and acres, and I could have died and no one would have found me, but I was like free and happy. Or camping, and to just hear like the sound of the river rushing by is it's
To hear
like
the
balm
birds
for
and
the
the
soul.
insects, and yeah, the sound of a morning
Mhm.
versus the sound of an evening, sunrise versus sunset.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you do to cultivate meaning?
Man, I think for me, meaning is on multiple levels, right? So there's intellectual pursuits, exposing yourself to ideas that are revelatory. We both clearly love that. We love to read. We love to read things and bookmark it and sit and think about it. Um, but being in my body is probably one that I've struggled more with. Um, what did you call this? You said the other day, we're spiritual ghosts in a, what is
Oh, I think this made the social media rounds, but basically, yeah, you are a divine ghost, okay, temporarily
Mhm.
trapped in a meat suit, tentatively tethered to a giant rock that's hurtling through space at 600 and
Exactly.
something
Yeah,
miles an
good
hour.
perspective. But I do think that, you can become overly obsessed with the meat suit, but also like sometimes you're not actually connected to it and living in it. And that's part, I don't know, I think a big part of the reason why we are embodied, right, is to experience the pain and the joy and all the things that come with being embodied. Our spirit having this temporary home, and how do we taste and touch and um, feel everything that you can feel through that. So I will say I'm horrible at that. I'm really, really bad at it. I love to read. I love, all the other pieces. And, and so, your heart pumping, this, after you've had a strenuous physical, you decide I'm going to weed my garden one day, and you go out and do it. And then you're like, man, that worked muscles that I didn't even know had not been touched in years. And now I can barely move. But also the satisfaction of that feeling
Mhm.
of just really being there. And it can be passive as well as active, like laying under the tree, feeling the grass against my skin, those
Yeah.
things. Um, so I think it's both. I seek to be inspired intellectually, and then I seek to feel with my body, and then lastly, just to be connected to other people is probably my biggest
Mm.
source of meaning. And I think the thing I've had to be careful of is not attaching too much ego into that. Is that a good way to say it? In terms of I am also not defined by my relationship. So if a friendship doesn't go south or doesn't work out, that is not, like a core piece of my identity. It is, I'm here to, you know, connect with people at the right moment that maybe is beneficial to both of us at that time of connection, but it doesn't it doesn't have to be, I don't know, long term, for it to be successful. It's a good way to.
Yeah. Is that just an innate part of you, or is that because I hear Buddhism and non-attachment kind of coming through what you're saying? Was that achieved via study, or
I
is
think
that
it's
just kind of
instinctual.
part of who you
I always say I'm a horrible Buddhist, so
are? Why? You don't like suffering, do
I
you?
don't. But I love the ideas of Buddhism, but yeah, I'm getting better the older I get. I guess the best way. I have much less attachment than I used to, um, and more patience to see how things evolve. You know, but generally, I would say
Mm.
those are the three areas: intellectual stimulation, and curiosity. Being driven by curiosity, trying to be in my body, and then having these moments of connection with people, whether they're fleeting or more sustained.
I love that. Those all
How about
resonate for
you?
sure. Um, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is I just, and this is probably so, part of my sadhana, my practice, like, prayer, meditation, exercise every morning. The meditation really helps bring me to the now. And that being in the now is how I feel like I cultivate more meaning in any situation at any moment. It's just desperately trying to remember that this is all fleeting, this is all temporary, good, bad, or otherwise, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
part of being alive,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, and there's it's not a mantra, but it's just center yourself in the present moment. Yoga Kuru Karmani, which my meditation teacher is always like, Yoga Kuru Karmani, Susan. Like, so bad at it. My brain is in the past or my brain is in the future. And it's like, be here now. So just trying to flex the muscle of being here now, I find just allows me to appreciate what's happening and just naturally gives it meaning. Like if I'm with a friend and we're having a good moment, I'm like, oh, like I can appreciate that for what it is. And, I'm not a big fan of suffering. I don't, but it is part of being alive. I don't know if you saw, I don't know how many years ago it came out that Stephen Colbert, I love him. And Anderson Cooper was interviewing him. And Anderson was like, you said this, Stephen, at one point that, you have to appreciate suffering in life too. And Anderson's like choking up and starting to cry. And he's like, do you really mean that? And Stephen Colbert's like, yeah, I do. Like, and so I'm not there. I don't like to suffer. It's really hard to find meaning in suffering. Though I have to say that I appreciate the outcome of every suffering I've been through. I wouldn't trade it, but really just trying to be in the present moment. I find just
Yeah.
unlocks meaning for me.
And we've talked before about, well, let's talk about suffering before we move on. Because let's pause on suffering for
All right.
just a moment. Yeah, discomfort is the beginning of the spectrum of suffering, right? It's like the easy part of suffering. Well, I don't know about easy, but I feel like so many people are unwilling, and I'm included in that, unwilling to experience discomfort. In many ways, our lives have become very easy, in terms of the million protein powders on the shelf that are available to you, and the fact that you can DoorDash. Most of us live in some place where we can DoorDash almost anything to our home at any point, all facilitated by that tool, money. But because life has become so easy, discomfort feels even more jarring. And so, I think that finding meaning can require you to embrace discomfort. And not many of us are up for that. It's not a natural thing to want to gravitate towards discomfort. And then, suffering is inevitable. It's going to hit you at some point, whether you like it or not. And
True.
agreed. I mean, there is a lot to learn in it. It's a teacher for sure. But it's not something you would seek out. At the same time, it is highly useful.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're right.
Darn it.
Nothing more to say on that topic. I think you nailed it. I think
Yes.
you nailed it. Must be amazing to be the hedonist archetype, right? Can you imagine? This went from good time to good time.
Yes.
Yeah,
It
that's
sounds
amazing for
fabulous. It
sure.
probably doesn't feel as fabulous as it sounds.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, in, what gives people meaning, I think it was Pew Research did a survey, and the top 5 were family, work, spirituality, service, and then learning. And I was surprised. I guess I shouldn't be, based on what I know about America today, that spirituality would be down, I guess number 3 on the list. I guess actually maybe that's better than
could have
been at the bottom of the list, given where we are. And
I
so
thought
what
it
do you think
was
of that
interesting.
list?
I saw that as well, and I was very intrigued by how high on the list work is. Because I don't know very many people who truly feel like their work gives them meaning.
Except I do think it echoes what we talked about earlier, which is my salary, my title, and what it buys me gives me what I would call artificial or hollow meaning. So it kind of goes back to this weird thing we've done
it's
in
very
America
tied up with ego and
where,
identity, right?
right. So to be able to tell somebody you've got this big title makes you feel
Mm-hmm.
meaningful, right? And gives you meaning. I'm glad family's at the top.
I
I
saw
love
that, and I thought,
that.
family in the broader sense for sure, in terms of community. So your family, your friends, your neighbors, all of those things. So connecting to each other, number one.
Yeah. Especially in, this social media age where they say, I was listening to a podcast, I think it was maybe Diary of a CEO, and he was interviewing this social psychologist, and she was talking about what's wrong with this cult, the younger generation. They're not getting married. They're not having kids. Like there's a lot of things going on, and I'm sure I'm oversimplifying and misrepresenting. But she's like, today, they've got 1,000 friends on social media, but no one to feed their cat if they go out of town. Right. And so it's like this artificial community that falls short at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I honestly, I don't know, I posted a meme to Instagram yesterday, the day before, and it was like, I can't decide if I should be more worried about World War III or AI takeover, or, like there's so many options if you want to be a doomsday person right now. You have no shortage of fodder for that. But,
Right on.
if you think about from an AI perspective, this idea of like what it means to be human and to connect with other people, I feel like the that is a counterpoint to the technology, and you see it to a certain extent with younger generations in terms of valuing like in-person experience or a simpler lifestyle, and how that is captured and marketed on TikTok or Instagram or other platforms, but also how it's legitimately a choice that more people are making or seeking. And so I expect to see more value placed on human connection because it's so rare, sadly.
Yeah, right. And if AI is going to do everything for us, if we're going to finally live into the Jetsons world that we were promised, what's left but connecting with humans? That's the one thing that
It's
technology
true.
can't do for
It's
us,
true.
So maybe we should figure out how to
Well,
market
I
that.
love that you think it might still be like the Jetsons versus Terminator versus them being our
A
overlords,
girl can
you know.
wait.
Although I don't know how useful we
A
are
girl.
to them. So probably not.
Oh, my stars. But it is hard. Like you have
Mhm.
to work every day, to find to find your center, to hold your peace, right, to not let just the chaos of it all just quash and squash and trample hope and meaning and positivity, because
Yeah, I
it's
mean
kind of
it's a
scary out
minute
there.
by minute, day by day practice that never ends. I mean, I guess it does end when
Yeah.
you end eventually,
It does.
but
That's
but
right.
it
That's right.
is relentless in terms of, I don't know. I guess this is maybe why I'm a bad Buddhist. Achieving enlightenment seems like a great goal, but does anybody ever really get there besides Buddha? I don't know. I don't know. A little skeptical on that.
You don't think that journey has a destination?
The journey,
Isn't the
well, and
journey
that
the
is, I
point?
mean, yeah, we are in the journey always. And so, you may feel like you've arrived, but you've never arrived.
Oh, oh my gosh. Was it Thich Nhat Hanh? I don't even remember who said this. I don't want to take any credit, but those who think they know don't know, and those who know they don't know, maybe know a
Yes,
little bit,
maybe a
maybe
little.
just a wee bit,
I have a good
because we don't
friend,
know.
and her husband says the faster she answers and the more authoritative that answer is, the more likely it is incorrect. And it's true. She is self aware of this, and if we say something, ask a question, and she immediately responds, very assuredly, we're like, we're skeptical. We're like, wait a second. But yes, for sure, there are so many people who are like, who will sell you the answer these days. Oh my gosh, that's all it is. That's all social media is, it feels like now, is selling you the answer
Yeah,
to
yeah,
uh, your digestive problems,
yeah.
your spiritual needs, your side hustle to make extra
Right.
money, or, yeah,
Problems I didn't even know I had, or things I didn't even know I was
exactly.
supposed to be doing. That's why I've really weaned myself off social media. I'm not completely
Well,
cut, but
congratulations.
it's an
Yes,
anxiety machine. It's an
it is.
anxiety machine, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you believe everything's sacred, I don't believe anything is secular, please. Right? If you believe everything is sacred, then there's meaning everywhere.
Well,
And maybe I need to get the jobs that these people have that ranked work number two. Maybe it's a poor choice of
well,
job for me,
I
but
think that goes back to this
yeah,
idea that meaning doesn't exist, it's created. No?
I don't agree with
Okay,
that.
let's talk about it.
Mm-mm. No, I think that the me, and this is where I am right now, and I
Of
wholly
course.
reserve the right to change my mind. I think just being alive is the meaning that we seek. Being aware that we are alive on this planet, under this sun, under the tree with your dog, my dog, right? That's it. And it exists whether I see it or not. It's about discovering meaning, I think, Just like life is about excavating who you really are, I think it's about discovering the meaning that's right there under our noses all the time. And then I think once for me, what the hell do I know? But then everything has meaning. Then you can look at things differently. It changes the lens from which you see. Um, I don't know.
So I have a
What do you think?
slightly different viewpoint, but I love yours. I think it sounds great. Uh, I think I understand. This is going to sound very jaded. I think it's going to sound a little jaded, but
Uh-oh.
but I
Okay.
understand the functional
Here we
benefit of
go.
meaning. That sounds so analytical.
Sounds very
Well,
marketing. The
there. I
benefit
mean,
of
yeah.
meaning
But
to
there
me.
are so many benefits to meaning. I mean, study after study has shown that if you have meaning in your life, you live longer, you're healthier, you're happier, you are more connected to other people, you have more of a social network,
Yeah.
etc. Like an actual, social support in real life. And so, at its most basic, to me, even if I suspect that it's all just chaos and we're here and maybe it's a little meaningless, on those days, I say to myself, well, it doesn't matter because functionally, it's better for me to have meaning, to see meaning in this world and in my experience. So I can't know for sure whether it's true or not, but I do know it's better for me. And I do know it's more satisfying for me. And so why not?
Yeah. To which I would say, you go, girl, right? Like, you go, girl. I feel like it's all
Right.
just right there waiting for us. And we just build wall after wall after
It's just
wall
a
after
much,
wall after wall.
I've gone through periods where I've thought differently about it. And I would just say that it's much more satisfying to live a life where you see meaning and, in the mundane, in nature, in relationship, in all the things,
Yeah,
it
I agree.
makes the life you're living more magical.
1,000% agreement. Absolutely. It's a gift. It's all a gift. Just being here on the planet is a gift. And I realize there are many souls who have it way worse than I do. And it's probably because I got it pretty good, right? All things considered. Easier for me to say that life is good. But I do think how the one thing you can control is your attitude, right? So, I do think having an attitude of gratitude really and just appreciating it, whatever it is, it just unlocked something for me, even in the worst of times.
I
So,
agree.
so any other thoughts on meaning? Is
Yeah,
anything
I
you
wanted
wanted to
to
share?
actually, I asked, ChatGPT about some stuff. So I want to tell you about that. You know, I was
Oh,
like, let's
what?
talk to the AI about meaning. I'm curious what it thinks. And, mostly it gave me a lot of good information about meaning as a cognitive organizing tool, the fact that we seek to, like put order to chaos and, all of these things that I believe in, like emotional resilience, social function, all these things. But at one point, what I asked it was, um, do you have meaning? Do you have meaning? Chat GPT? Yeah.
Oh, wow. And
It
what
said,
did it
I don't have meaning
say?
in the way you do because I don't have consciousness, feelings, or a sense of self. I don't experience life, time, or death. So I don't need meaning. I just generate words based on patterns and data. But the fact that you're asking me this is fascinating and kind of
Oh my
beautiful.
goodness.
So it said, if I did have meaning, it might be this to help you find yours. What a great answer for our little friend. It's still trying to help, it wants me to believe it is my friend, but I'm here to help you ask the right questions, explore your thoughts, reflect on what truly matters to you, not because I have purpose, but because you do. So poetic, Chat GPT. So poetic.
Oh my God. I feel like that would have been a great ending for Blade Runner. Maybe that's the third Blade
Yeah,
Runner ending.
pretty
That's
nice.
amazing. That was such a cool thing for you
I'd
to
love
think
to
to do.
chat
I
with my
love that.
friend GPT and see what he says, you know? It's pretty fascinating. So you had sent over something, and in it had a list on how to create meaning. And I thought this was really helpful. 5 practices to create meaning. Identify your core values, what matters to you. Step 1. I think that's yeah,
That's the list. Family, work,
right. And your list may
spirituality,
look
right?
different, right? That's the
Service.
general list.
Yeah,
But what are your core
that's the
values, right?
yeah.
I'm very justice oriented. I'm very driven by that. And that's
Mm,
where sometimes doing like Enneagram, taking an Enneagram test or some of those other things, it can really highlight to you what are your core values, because I don't know if before I did some of those things I would have been able to articulate it as well. But I'm an Enneagram 8, so very justice oriented, but also honesty is a core value for me. And so, you know,
mm.
as soon as I saw it, I was like, exactly. I do believe you're only as good as your word, right? And the actions and how you live out, that commitment, right? So identifying your core values, lots of tools to help you do that. Serve something greater, volunteer, mentor, create, purpose, thrives in contribution. I think there are innumerable opportunities there. Sometimes it can be a situation of overwhelm, right? Where can I contribute? How do I embrace the discomfort of getting out of my comfort zone and putting myself in a situation where I maybe have to interact with people who are different from me, or operate in a role that is unfamiliar to me, to be of service. That can be a little challenging, but serving something greater, a key piece. Tell your story, construct a coherent life narrative.
Eek. That
Why
one
does
makes
it
me
make you itchy?
itchy. I don't know. I don't know. I
You just had a
genuinely
very
don't
visceral
know.
reaction to it.
I did. My whole body went
It was like
recoil,
I tried to
recoil.
hand you a
I don't even.
snake.
I
You were like, nope,
know.
nope. I'm going to
I think I'll have
resist
to
telling my
meditate on that.
story. I
Well,
think that's why you're here right now, Susan. Right now. This is it. Right here.
okay, I guess my subconscious hasn't fully kicked it to the fore frontal lobe there.
Yes. Well, and I
Okay.
think a coherent life narrative is more difficult too, because I mean we're always constructing the story of who we are.
I was gonna say, as soon as you said that, I think what my visceral reaction was, I can't tell my narrative because I'm not dead yet. I don't know why, but I think that's why I was like, oh, wait, I still have I'm going to live to be 104. I still have many, many, many years to go. I can't tell my life narrative yet. It's like
Wow,
barely
that's
halfway over.
interesting. Yeah, I think that
And maybe
I was like
optimistic.
104, sure, Susan, go for it. I talked to my financial planner recently, and she was, my lifespan. She said at 94, and I was like, more power to you, but I doubt that's going to happen. Let's plan for it, sure, but
Wait, wait, why not? Anyway, we'll do that another
I will
podcast.
say about telling your story or your life narrative, to me, I think that especially in the world today, there's this desire that you never evolve and change your mind or your views, right? Like that you've baked your viewpoint and that it just is static in some way. And somehow that is, if you do evolve and change, it's inconsistency and instead of growth, which I find very bizarre. But don't you see that every day, especially like politically? You'll see, oh, they're a flip flopper or whatever. So to me, the story of my life is the story I would tell you today. And 5 years ago, it would have been different. 5 years from now, it'll be different. It could even be different tomorrow, depending on what happens, right? It's ever evolving. So I think you want to get to that point where it's baked.
I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Well, we're going to do a follow up. I like that as a topic. I like that.
I'm like getting
You're
like sweaty
schwitzing.
over here.
Okay. So, number 4
All
on
right.
how to create meaning, deepen relationships. Loneliness erodes meaning, connection restores it.
Well, that's your point about community. I think I think that is so, so true. I think I used to be a little misanthropic when I was little and or younger and just kind of think, people are shit, like, oh, they do terrible. Da, 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 da. And I've come full circle. I've come full circle on that. Like, I think you're 100% right. I think being connected in all different ways and all different levels with family, friends, love, all like it, having all of that is so powerful
Yeah,
to
your
building a
life
unique
experience
life.
is singular, but life is a team sport for sure. And
Yeah.
then pursue
Yeah.
intrinsic goals is number 5. Choose growth, creativity, wonder, not just wealth or success. So we've talked a lot about that, but I love this word wonder. Let's stick on that for a second. I at
Mm-hmm.
one point I did, because
Mm-hmm.
my love language is PowerPoint. We joke about, but
This is why we're like symbiotic. I
at one
dream in
point I put
PowerPoint. No, I'm just
together a PowerPoint many years ago that was centered on what are my values, or what are some of the foundational, and curiosity was one of them and wonder was another. And I can still picture, I picked
kidding.
photography for each one. So this was almost like, a PowerPoint mood board in a way, right? So I
Right.
can still see in my mind the photograph that I chose, and it's this beautifully lit close up shot of this young girl's face. And she has these, bright blue eyes and this expression of complete, she's awestruck. And whenever I see the word wonder, I think of that picture now. Yeah, that visual.
Visual.
And yeah, I mean, to me, existing in a state of wonder about the world, about the breath, your own breath, about all of these things, that's pretty awesome. That's where the awesome sauce is.
Love it. I love it. And I guess maybe over the term of our friendship, I will convince you you are a Buddhist, because in Buddhism, that's called the beginner's mind. And you look at everything with fresh eyes and wonder, right? You don't let things become routine and rote and familiar. It's like, friends who've like moved to these gloriously beautiful places, like Colorado or Oregon or wherever. And they're like, yeah, after a while, you don't even see the mountains. I'm like, what? What? The river's just background. What?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, as we talked
So
about, wonder is not even right outside your door. It's in this very moment. But it can be right outside your door. You can walk out and find wonder, in the tree across the street. And, just pay attention. I was watering today, and I had like a little toad that came to visit me, and a wasp that was circling, and some other a hummingbird that was enjoying some of my flowers. And I would say 99% of the time I don't take any time to notice those things. And this morning I did, and well, it was pretty
yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. You just embrace being alive with everything that's
yeah,
alive around you. I love that. Should come to my neighborhood.
yeah.
It's like the wild kingdom. There's all these rabbits, and so all the cats are running around with dead rabbits in their mouth. The hawks are coming. There's bobcat. I'm like, going for a walk has become, a
You're
little
like, it's
terrifying.
maybe a little too much nature.
We have
I don't know. For the suburb.
too much nature. I like your version. I like your version. Like, all these poor rabbits. I've cried over
Oh,
rabbits so many
yeah. Well,
times. Great.
rabbits are just, they're just going through that karmic cycle fast. That's it.
Yeah. Well, but I love that. Just you were just abiding. You were
Yes.
just abiding in
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah, and yeah, and I it was very enjoyable. But it's just a matter of giving yourself the space, right? Giving yourself the space to have those moments.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pausing. Just like when you meditate, there's the space between the inhale and the exhale, right? I don't know in TM if that's part of what they teach. I know that's your preferred meditation, but it's that pause. It's
Hmm.
that space, right? That's the place where all the good stuff comes from.
It's true. It's very true. Maybe I will be a Buddhist someday. So you talked about Thoreau, and one thing that I wanted to mention is the first time I read Walden, I was in high school. It was a required reading, and I was like, "This is the worst book I've ever read."
Of course, you and 99% of all the other high
I
school
was like,
students.
if this guy talks more about ants, I'm going to put an ice sculpture in my temple. It's too much. It's too much. I was like, surely you have better things to do. Come on. And then the second time I read it was in graduate school. And at that point, I had a job and a mortgage, and it made so much more sense to me.
Were you ready to get the hell
I
out
was
of town?
brand new in my adulthood, and I already was thinking, this is not what it was cracked up to be.
Yeah, oversold.
Yeah,
Oversold.
the hype on this was
Misrepresented.
far beyond the reality. And so I really loved it the
Yes,
second time. So now I can be on board. Yes.
that's awesome.
Yes. But I mean, and I think too,
Okay,
this
good.
idea of retreating into nature, disconnecting from technology, you know, you see it. I have some friends who live in Flagstaff, and I go visit them all the time because I love Flagstaff. It's a great town. But, you know, it's surrounded by the desert and the high desert, and you'll go into town and go to the grocery store and you see somebody pull up in this, it looks like almost like a Mad Max vehicle, right? And they get out, and I kid you not, I saw this one guy that was dressed like a shepherd. Legit. I was the
Like
robe,
the robe and the
like rope
staff.
tie around us instead of a belt. I mean, the sandals.
Did he roll in from a
He
cult,
rolled in on his
maybe?
own in this camper truck, dusty camper truck setup. And when I first saw him, I thought, did he just come from a Christmas pageant? But it was the summer, so that could not have been the answer. I was
Did
like,
you forget the baby
what
Jesus?
Christmas pageant did you just escape from? But you know, you see folks like this, and they're the desert rats, is what, you know, the locals call them. And they're the people who are like living off the grid out there in the desert, away from other people, you know, maybe in smaller communities, some of them very, you know,
Yeah.
kind of loner types. And, you know, you're both alarmed. What's up with the shepherd guy? But then also just a little jealous, maybe. Just a teeny bit. Oh, no,
Was
come
he
on.
cute? Was he
The
hot?
personal hygiene was low. But, you know,
You'd have to catch it, then it wouldn't
there
bother
is some
you.
appeal in the idea of that. I mean, for me, it wouldn't be the desert. It would definitely be someplace that is greener than that. But this idea of retreating into the woods, you know, cutting yourself off from the chaos. I think a lot of people had that
Yeah.
experience, and then also like an enhanced version of that fantasy during COVID, right? Yeah, just removing yourself from society, living simpler.
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty forced on us, but
Yeah,
it
in
was a
some
nice
ways. I
break,
mean, it
wasn't it?
definitely had some
Finding it.
pieces that were a good reminder.
I mean, obviously a lot of
Loss.
sadness and sorrow, and yeah, absolutely chaos. But yeah, no, I know I could happily tootle off to a cabin for. I think at some point I would start going a little stir crazy, like for companionship. I think so. I'm not sure I could do it alone, but
Yeah,
I could do it for a good summer. I mean, I'd be just fine for in a little cabin, maybe outside Crater
sounds
Lake.
amazing.
That would
Take
be
me with you.
amazing for the summer.
Right?
I'll see you in September.
Yeah, and I think
No
if you
problem.
eliminate the prospect of isolation, you know, I also have some friends who live outside of Charlottesville in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And, you know, you may not be able to see your next neighbor, although probably you can because you can see them on the next hill, right? The lights at night or whatever. But
Oh,
you definitely have neighbors and you have community, and you're just a little bit outside of some of the,
yeah,
you know, yeah.
that would
So,
be amazing.
I mean,
That
my
would
friends
be
and I
amazing.
talk about the commune all the time. It's a running joke.
I'm in it. Sister, like mine as well. And it's like a
Yeah,
retirement commune. It's let's just find some land somewhere, tiny little houses.
yeah,
I think that's the wave of the future. I mean, there's places in Austin that are, building them, little tiny communities, right? So
yeah.
it's coming, but
Yeah, communal living is a whole other topic that I'd love to tackle at some point, and what it means in terms of of how it does build meaning and connection and all these things, because, you know, there have been a lot of attempts to look at communal living differently, in terms of multi-generational structures and homes, but also, you know, at one point I dove deeper on this, you know, in essence, kind of like apartment buildings that encourage a more communal experience versus an isolated experience. So, in fact, you know what? I just toured. This is a great. This is obviously it's been on my mind. I just toured a whole bunch of independent living and assisted living communities because my mom's about to move into an independent living situation, and some of them are incredibly nice. You know, if you have, once again, money is a tool. If you have resources, it can, you know, it can be very useful. And there's one, you know, the one she ended up in has a lot of pluses, but the level of activities available, classes available, communal dining options. I was like, when can I move in? I'm ready. Plus, I would feel so young. It would be fabulous. No, but seriously, like, I think you could create something like that for people who are, I don't know, you know, 40 to 60 or 35 to 60 or something like that. You know, I don't know if you have to put an age range on it, but, you know, like this idea of like a communal living experience where you have those resources available to you, and there's more intent on, you know, you're self-selecting for people who do want to be social and who do want to have those connections. I think that's a money-making idea right there.
Well, I remember it from being in Austin at UT. I mean, who didn't want to get into the co-op? You know, it's like, hey, you know, I'm in, right, sister. I'm in. I'll cook. I'll take my turn in the kitchen. I'll take my, you know, like everybody has to take their turn somewhere.
Yeah, the dark side of the commune idea is your apocalypse team. Yeah, do you not have an apocalypse team?
I do not have an apocalypse team. I think that by definition, there's no teams left in the apocalypse.
Well, you know, I mean, it could be complete apocalypse. It's just like, you know, society breaks down, you're on your own. Who's your team? You know, like.
Oh my God, can I be on your team?
You didn't even know, but you need a team, Susan. You need a team. Yes. Okay. So you know, my friend group near where I live, that I see most regularly, we were like, okay, one of the guys has military, he's ex-military, other guy's in healthcare, he's a PA. I was like, we have got some good bases covered here. Okay. Yes.
You do.
We have one of my friends, she's an amazing gardener. I was like, all right. I looked at my team and I thought, this is a solid team. And then I thought, now, what can I bring to it? I'll be doing marketing for the team. If we need a podcast, maybe, I don't know.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my stars. Okay, now I got to think about my apocalypse team.
I mean, you know, it's like I said, it's just a darker flavor of the commune idea.
We've been darker.
I like the dark side sometimes, Susan. That's what keeps me from being a good Buddhist.
You're cracking yourself up over there. I can tell you, like, you're cracking yourself
All right. Well, this was super fun.
That's fun. It was good conversation.
I don't think we've exhausted the meaning of meaning. But I'm sure we'll iterate on this just a bit, but an auspicious beginning. And, you know, in line with our intent to create a space for seekers, you know, people who are curious, who want to explore spirituality, whatever that means to them, whatever it looks like for them, and the beginning of many interesting conversation.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a joy. And, you know, we're doing our best to acknowledge the sacred in the world around us, but occasionally I lose the plot. So,
exactly.
Sacredish.